Hi, this is Jeff, your GIS instructor, and this will be sort of the first lesson for Intro to GIS, Geography 1100. Hopefully by now you were able to get the software downloaded and on your computers. As usual, if you weren't able to, I'm always here to help. Make sure you contact me via email or phone, or come in and see me here at the Gateway building at Casper. Also, you can always use the GIS lab here at the college. It's Gateway Room 210. And remember, the code to get into that room is 8512 pound, and all the computers in there have ArcGIS installed on it. So assuming you have the software set up on your computer at home, we're going to go through how ArcGIS works, and hopefully after this video it'll get you going with the first lab that I want you to do. First of all, I have arcmap open. Remember, when you download the ArcGIS software, there's three components to it: ArcMap, ArcCatalog, and ArcToolbox. We're going to be using ArcMap the most, and that is what I have open up here. And I'm just going to minimize it real quick, and you can see here's the icon right here. I just double clicked it and it opens up. The first thing I'm going to do, and this is something, once you do it once, you shouldn't have to do it anymore, but there is some kind of housekeeping procedures we need to do. Is we're going to open up Internet Explorer. So I just open up Internet Explorer on my desktop, and the first thing we need to do is we need to, again, open it up. We need to go to Tools, Internet Options. We're going to hit the Connections tab. Then we're going to hit the LAN Settings tab, and we're going to make sure this box is unchecked. This automatically detects settings. Make sure that this box is unchecked. Once that's unchecked, click OK to all the windows, and then go ahead and close Internet Explorer. The reason we're doing that is that auto detect settings in the LAN settings helps you. It helps the ArcGIS software load the aerial photos faster. So that's why we need to do that, because here in a second we're going to load some aerial photos in. They come streaming live off the internet from Esri in California, and if that setting is unchecked in Internet Explorer, it just helps it load a lot faster. So we did that. Let's go back into ArcMap right now, and first thing I'm going to do is load in the aerial photo we're going to use. So let's go up to the corner here in ArcMap. It says File, ArcGIS Online. And ArcGIS Online is a great resource for a lot of data. You'll see here when it opens up, there's tons of data in here. Most of this stuff on the first page is census data. So you might want to browse through this on your own when you have some free time. There's a lot of good data in here that you can use and look at. You can search for a lot of data, and that's what we're going to do right now. We're going to search for some aerial photos to use. So I'm going to type in the search box, I'm going to type the word imagery and hit enter. You can see there's a lot of different imagery sets that we can use. They all have a lot of different dates of when their current date is. Now what we're going to load in here is some aerial photography for the entire world. Now what Esri has done is they've collected whatever the most up-to-date world imagery is or aerial photography is, and they've sort of seamed it all together into one big massive data set. Some places in the world you can see the date for this imagery with labels is 7/9/2015. So somewhere in this data set there's an aerial photo, and the last time it was updated was July 9th, 2015. So that's pretty recent. However, not every piece of imagery in this data set was updated. Some of it's pretty old. It's just whatever Esri could find that's the most recent is seamed together into one big data set. So if you take a look at this here in a second and you look at your house, you might find that the photos for Wyoming are about 3 years old, generally speaking. So it won't be updated as of July 9th, 2015. But still, it's pretty good, pretty good imagery to use. What we're going to do is we're going to load in this imagery with labels. So let's go ahead and click the open link. This might take a minute here. And in fact, I'm going to go ahead and pause the recording while this is loading, and once we're back, hopefully the imagery will be, well, here we go. Looks like it's loading maybe. It's asking me, do I want to check on hardware acceleration? Let's go ahead and click yes. Okay, here we go. Here you have the entire world in terms of aerial photography. It also has labels in it, so it's going to label the states, the countries. I don't think there's any transportation in here. No, there's not. So just sort of political boundaries on top of all the aerial photos. So let's go ahead and zoom in on the 48 states. Again, we're just using the zoom button here. And the way this zoom button works is you just click on it. You can either use your roller ball on your mouse. If you move that back and forth, it'll zoom you in and out. Usually the way I like to do it is hold down my left mouse button, draw a box around whatever area I want to zoom into, and then let up on the mouse and it zooms into that area. Let me back up just a little bit. The areas in the software that we're looking at here this is obviously what we call the data frame, or the map area. This is where you look at all your data. Over here on the left, this shows you all the data you have loaded into your arcmap session. This is called the table of contents. And then up above are all your toolbars. You can move these toolbars around. You can click on the little dots at the beginning of the toolbar and hold down your left mouse button and move these toolbars around. I like to usually dock them up above. But again, this is ArcMap, and we have the toolbars up top, table of contents to the left, and then the view area or the mapping area here in the middle. Okay. We just used the zoom tool. Again, I clicked on it, drew a box around the area I want to zoom into. There's a zoom out tool that works the same way, except obviously it zooms out. When you see the globe down here in the corner spinning, that means your map is still drawing. So if it doesn't draw right away and you see that little globe spinning down there, that's why. Next to the zoom in and zoom out tools, we have the pan tool. So if you click on that, that pans the map around to wherever you want to pan into. And let's go ahead and zoom into Casper here. And as you'll see, as you zoom in farther and farther, the resolution should get better on the aerial photography. And you see here's the municipal golf course. Right next to it is the Casper College campus. Let's keep zooming in on the campus. So you can see here, the more we zoom in, the better the picture gets. Just some things to orient yourself with. Here's Crampert Theater. Here's Physical Science Building. Here's the Gateway Building. This is where my office is and where the GIS lab is. You can see this photo was taken in about the summer of 2012, I think, because the Gateway Building is built. There's no landscaping around it yet. As you can see here, the Union has not even started to be built yet. Roberts Commons is here. That building no longer exists. You can see the new dorms are here on campus. However, the old ones are still here, and those are no longer there. So campus looks quite a bit different now than it does even from 3 or 4 years ago when this photo was taken. But again, we're talking about the tools that we use the most here. We've got zoom in, zoom out, the pan tool. The full extent button, if you hit that button, that zooms you out to the full extent of your map. So if I were to hit that button right now, it would, in fact, I'll go ahead and do it. It zooms us out to the full extent of whatever data is in my table of contents here, which is the world imagery. The buttons next to it, fix zoom in and out. Those, if you hit those will take you in at little increments. Notice the scale bar here changes. Looks like it's changing by 50 million increments. Okay, or 25 million actually. Notice the arrows here go back to previous extent. Those are handy. If I keep hitting that, that takes me back to the previous zoom extent that I was at. So if I keep hitting that, eventually I will get back to where I was on campus. And there we are. Now if I want to go back out, again I could hit go to the next extent. So that's kind of neat if you kind of find yourself losing yourself here. And you want to go back to a previous extent, just make sure and use these arrows here. Okay. Let's see here. Let's go ahead and add some data. Up above here, there's a little yellow, looks like a yellow diamond with a black cross on it. That is the Add Data button. Okay. So if you want to add data to your map, we're going to add what's called a shapefile to our map. Now a shapefile is what Esri uses, or what Esri calls the data that you add into ArcMap. There's 3 kinds of shapefiles. Point shapefiles, line shapefiles, and polygon shapefiles. And you're going to see examples of each of those 3 here in a second. Again, those are shapefiles. There is something out there called a geodatabase, and that's just sort of a different way of displaying data, and we're not going to talk too much about geodatabases here in the intro course. If you continue on in the GIS program, we will certainly learn about geodatabases in the next class, Geography 1110. We're mostly just going to deal with shapefiles, though, here in 1100. So let's add some shapefiles here to our map. I'm going to hit the Add Data button. I'm going to hit the drop down arrow and go to Folder Connections. And it looks like my folder connections have been erased, which is good. So we'll have to kind of start from the beginning, which is good because you guys are going to have to do this as well. So when you first start with this, you're going to have to build a connection to the data. Now I gave you guys some data in a folder to download, and hopefully you put that somewhere on your computer, and a good place to put that would be under the C drive of your machine. So if I were you, I would create a folder called GIS on your C drive, and inside there I would put the week 1 folder, and that's where you're going to build a connection to. Now for me, I'm going to hit this button called Connect to Folder. Now the data I'm going to be using is sort of in a different place. It's under Jeff Sun, My Documents, Classes. I'm going to go to the GEOG 1100 day folder, and here I'm going to build a connection to week 1. Okay. Now again, for you, what you're going to do is probably hit the Connect To folder, go to Computer, C Drive. Somewhere in there you're going to have a folder called GIS, and then somewhere in there you're going to have a folder called Week 1, and that's what you will connect to. And then after that, you will have your data folder, just like I have right here. Now inside the data folder, we've got 4 examples of shapefiles. Okay, we have a city shapefile, counties, roads, and United States. Okay, and you can see the 3 different types here. Cities are a point shapefile. You can see the 3 little dots here. Counties is a polygon. That's the polygon symbol. Roads is a line. And again, United States is another polygon. So we have 4 shapefiles here. These 4 shapefiles represent the 3 examples of the 3 different types of shapefiles I want you to know. Points, lines, and then polygons. We have examples of those. The polygons are counties and United States. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and add all 4 of these shapefiles into my map. Now the way I'm going to do that is click on cities, hold down my control button, and click on each of these 4 shapefiles, and then just click add. Now we're going to get a warning here that says geographic coordinate system is different than these 4 shapefiles. Don't worry about that warning right now. In the next unit, when we talk about projections, we're going to learn what this means. Right now, we're not too concerned about it. So let's go ahead and click close. Now my map went blank here. Okay, and I'm going to explain why that is. What I want to do is over in my table of contents, notice that the shapefiles were added to my map. Okay. I want to zoom to the full extent of the United States shapefile. So I'm going to right click on it, and I'm going to say zoom to layer. Okay, so you saw several things happen there. You saw the world imagery being drawn, and then on top of that, the state shapefile was drawn, then the counties, roads, and cities. So the way ArcGIS orders things is top to bottom in the table of contents. The cities are drawn on top of the roads on top of the counties on top of the states, and all of that is on top of the world imagery. So that's why we can't see the world imagery right now, is because all of this stuff, these 4 shapefiles, are being drawn on top of it, because that's the order that it's in the table of contents. Now you can change that order around. You can move things around if you want. For example, if for some reason I wanted to draw the states on top of everything, I could just hold down my left mouse button and drag the states above everything else. Now it's covering up all of this because the states is ordered on top. Okay? Drag it down below the counties here. You can see there's quite a bit of, these are all the main roads and highways in the United States, and these are the main cities, and we've also got counties in there. Since there's a lot of roads here and it's kind of making the map look a little messy, let's go ahead and just turn the roads off. So you can turn a piece of data off by just checking the checkbox next to roads. Okay. So now you can see what we're looking at here are the cities on top of the counties. Now, the states are being drawn as well, but the reason we can't see those state boundaries is why? Hopefully by now you've figured out, because the counties are being drawn on top of the states. Alright? Let's say we want to see the states and the counties at the same time. So we would like to see which counties are in which state. So let's go ahead and do this. Let's take the states and move them above the counties. Remember, we're just going to hold the left mouse button down and move them above the counties. Then what the cool thing you can do in a GIS is you can change change what the icon looks like for the states. So what I'm going to do is click on the little square below United States. I'm going to make it hollow. I'm going to make the outline width a 2, and I'm going to make the color red. Okay. So we change the outline width to 2 and the outline color to red. We're going to click OK. And look at that. Now we can see the states, the outline of the states on top of the counties. So we can clearly see which counties are in which state. All right. Let's say we want to see the aerial photo in all of this too. What can we do? Well, let's click on the symbol underneath counties. We're going to make it hollow. I'm just going to make the outline width a 1, and let's make the color a light orange. Don't really like that. It's kind of meshing with the red a little too much. Let's pick another color. How about yellow? Okay, that's better. So now we can see the state outlines on top of the county outlines. We can see the cities in there, and then we can see the aerial photo below all that. The cities are kind of busying up the map a little bit. Let's go ahead and check those cities off. Okay, there we go. Okay, let's go ahead and zoom in on Wyoming. All right, there's a little bit better picture of Wyoming. 23 county outlines on below the state outline, so we can clearly see all of that. So what have we learned so far? We've learned, again, toolbars. We're using arcmap. These are the toolbars in arcmap, table of contents, the viewing area. We've learned how to add shapefiles into our map. And we've learned how to sort of manipulate the symbols in the GIS so that we can kind of see all of the pieces of data that we want to see. All right. Okay, so the neat thing about a GIS is not only can we add data into it, points, lines, and polygons, we can manipulate the symbology so we can see data better and make better maps, but there's also what we call attributes about data. Now, attributes are tabular data, I guess you could say, about the spatial data. So we're looking at the spatial data, mapping data here on the map, but behind this data is what we call attributes. For example, if we open up the United States attribute table, so if we right-click on states, and go to Open Attribute Table, you can see a little table opens up here. And this table has information about all of the states in our map. Okay, so we've got area, state name, we've got a FIPS code. So each state has a unique code. So Washington is 53, Idaho is 16, I believe. We'll look at what Wyoming is here in a minute. We've got its abbreviation, what subregion the state is in. And this particular is this is older data, but this is census data, okay? So when you turn in the census every 10 years, some of you may have gotten a questionnaire in the mail that the government wants you to fill out, or someone may have actually came to your door and knocked on the door and asked you some questions about your household. Well, one of the cool things that the government does is that it puts that information inside GIS data. So for example, in 2003, Washington had a population of, what is that, 6,137,285 people. Square miles, 88 square miles. That doesn't seem right. 88 seems really low. I wonder if that's... Oh, population in 2000 per square mile. So Washington has 88 people per square mile. Tells you how many white, black, I believe that's American, Eskimo, Asian, Hawaiian, other males, females, ages. So there's a lot of information for every state. Now you can see the attributes run across the table in columns, so each column is a different attribute. Each row in the table represents a state. Okay. Now the neat thing is we can click on, let's say Washington, for example. So if you have your attribute table open, just go ahead and click on whatever the first state is in your table. It may or may not be Washington, but you can click on this little box here over to the left, and it highlights it. If we kind of move this table out of the way and then use our pan tool and we pan up to where Washington is, you can see it highlighted Washington in blue because we clicked on Washington in our attribute table. Now notice right next to Washington, or pretty close to it, Idaho's in between, but let's click on Idaho. Notice when we click on Idaho in the table, Idaho lights up on the map. Click on Montana, Montana lights up. So again, interesting thing to note is whenever you click on an item in the attribute table, it will highlight it on your map. Okay. The other neat thing you can do with an attribute table is you can order the data. So for example, let's say we want to alphabetize the list of states here. So we could right click on state name, and say sort ascending. And you can see there it alphabetizes the states. First one Alabama, last one should be, yep, Wyoming. Okay. Wyoming's FIPS code, remember that unique identifier for each state, Wyoming is 56. Let's say we want to find out, okay, which state has the lowest population in the United States in year 2003. What would we do? We would right click on POP 2003, say sort descending, or excuse me, sort ascending, so lowest to highest, and you can see, yep, we probably already knew this answer, but Wyoming has the lowest population in 2003 with a population of 499,000 people. Next is District of Columbia, Vermont, North Dakota, so on and so forth. Which state has the highest population? There's a couple ways we could do this. We could simply just scroll down to the end of the table. We can see California. Looks like that's 35,547,875 people. The other thing we could have done is gone to up to the top of the table, right-clicked POP 2003, said sort descending, so it goes from biggest to smallest, and you can see it puts California at the top. Okay. Let's say we wanted to know which states have trying to think of a question here. Which states have let's see, 800 or let's say 600,000 people or more. Okay, 600,000 people or more. Now, that may seem like a bit of a hard thing to do just by organizing the table here, although not really. We could organize the table, or a faster way to do it would be to go to Table Options. So click this button clear over here in the upper left, and let's go to Select by Attributes. And we're going to find the attribute that says POP 2003. So we're going to scroll down here. POP 2003. We're going to double click it. And we want to know all the states that have greater than or equal to 600,000 people. So we're going to do the greater than or equal to sign. I believe that's greater than or equal to. I think this is less than or equal to. This is greater than or equal to. Then we're going to hit the space bar and we're going to type in 600,000 600,000. So 6 and 6 zeros. Excuse me, 6 and 5 zeros. We're going to click apply, and you can see all of those states that have 600,000 people or more are highlighted. And actually there's only 2 that don't fit that criteria, District of Columbia and Wyoming. Okay. Let's come up with another question here. Which states have 10,000 or more Asian population? Might be kind of, or let's say 10,000 or less. Okay. Again, table options, select by attributes. We're going to find the Asian attribute. Here we are, Asian less than or equal to, I need to delete all this out. Double click Asian less than or equal to 10,000. Click apply. You can see we've got a list of them here. There's 7 out of the 49 in here. Okay. By the way, the reason there's 49 states is because we have the 48 contiguous states plus the District of Columbia. This particular data set does not include Hawaii and Alaska. Okay, so the 48 states plus District of Columbia. So those 7 states are highlighted here. If we want to see what they look like on the map, let's go ahead and move our table out of the way here. And let's close this Select by Attributes window. And let's kind of zoom out. I'm going to use my roller ball. And so there's the 7 states that have 10,000 or less of an Asian population. Montana, Wyoming, North Dakota, South Dakota. Looks like West Virginia, Maine, and I believe that is, what is that? Let's zoom in here. Is that Vermont? Yep, I believe, yep, Vermont. Okay. 7 states that have 10,000 or less of an Asian population. So that's interesting. Okay. Again, we can use the GIS to make better maps by manipulating the symbols, but we can also pull different kinds of information out on our map, which is, in my opinion, the really cool thing about a GIS. Okay, we can not only make cool maps, but we can see different kinds of information on the map. Okay. Now, if you have selected something on your map and you want to clear that selection, in other words, these 7 states are highlighted, we want to make them not highlighted. So let's go ahead. There's a button up here that says Clear Selected Features. If you hit that, it'll clear that selection. Okay. Let's talk about how the data is organized somewhat in the software ArcGIS. Now remember, we're looking at 4 shapefiles here: cities, roads, United States, and counties. Let's open up the second part of ArcGIS. Again, the first part of the software we're looking at is ArcMap. Let's go ahead and open up Catalog. Now you can open up Catalog over here on the right. Okay. And if we look under Folder Connections, and we go into that connection where these 4 shapefiles are, notice that these 4 shapefiles, they look like 4 files: cities, counties, roads, and states. However, a shapefile is made up of not just one file, it's actually made up of multiple files. Okay? So if we were to look at what these shapefiles actually look like on your computer, let's go ahead and open up Windows Explorer. Okay, Windows Explorer. Now, a fast way to open up Windows Explorer is to hit the Windows key on your keyboard and then hit the E button. Okay, and that opens up Windows Explorer. Now let's go to where these shapefiles are located. Now if we go to Catalog, remember for me it's under Users, Jeff, Sun, Documents, Classes, GEOG 1100, and then the Data file. For you, it's probably C:GIS Week 1. Okay, let's get back to Windows Explorer. I'm going to go to Documents, Classes, GEOG 1100 Day, Week 1, Data folder. Now, this is what I was talking about. These shapefiles, so for example, the cities shapefile that we have here in our ArcMap session, it looks like one file in the table of contents, but it's actually made up of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 other files. Okay? The county shapefile that we have in ArcMap is made up of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 files. Okay? So, and I don't know what the difference here is, but generally speaking, shapefiles are made up between 3 and 7 different files depending on how big it is. So just remember, if you were to send someone, like if I wanted to send someone this road shapefile, I would need to make sure and email them all of these files. Okay? Not just the roads.shp. The shapefile needs all of these files to work in ArcMap. Now, Esri, the company that makes the software, when you look at a shapefile, it looks like it's just one file. But when you look at it in Windows Explorer, again, let me go back to where my data is. It's actually made up of several different files. So just remember, a shapefile in the software looks like one file. In reality, on your computer, it's made up of several different files. Okay, just something to remember, especially if you're going to send someone GIS data. Sorry if you see my head turning throughout. It's because I'm looking out the window at people walking by. So hopefully that's not too much of a distraction. Sometimes it is for me, I guess. But anyway, so. Again, just to kind of recap, we've added data into ArcMap, learned about the table of contents, the viewing area, toolbars. We looked at ArcMap first. We manipulated Symbology. We learned about the attribute table. We've looked at catalog. We found out that shapefiles are actually made up of multiple files, not just one file. Okay. Now let's go ahead and let's just do some simple analysis here. And the first sort of analysis we're going to do is, let me give you a problem here. And I'm going to show you how to solve this problem. And based on how we solve this problem, you should be able to complete the lab that I want you guys to work on for this first unit. Okay? And to complete this first problem I'm going to give you, we're going to use the third component of ArcGIS, which is ArcToolbox. Remember, there's ArcMap, ArcCatalog, and ArcToolbox. And you can open up ArcToolbox up here by clicking on this little red toolbox and look for the tool that you want to use. Or another way to look for tools that I mostly use is this search window here. Okay. So let me give you guys a problem here. Let's turn on the cities. Let's zoom. I'm going to make the cities a different symbol here just so we can see them a little better. And let's zoom in on Wyoming. Okay. You can see these are just the major cities. You can see we have Gillette, Casper. I'm guessing that's probably Sheridan, Rock Springs, Green River, Evanston, Cheyenne, and Laramie. Okay. By the way, if we want to label these cities, we could right-click Cities, go to Label Features, and you can see it turned the labels on. All right. But let me give you a problem here. I'm going to go ahead and turn those labels off. Again, right-click on Cities and just check Labels off. So the problem, I'm moving to Casper. Let's say I got a job here in Casper, Wyoming, and I want to live, I I could potentially live in the city itself, or I'd be willing to travel 5 miles outside of, or live 5 miles outside of Casper to travel. Let's say I work here at the college. I'd be willing to travel 5 miles to work if I had to. So I'd be willing to live outside of the city limits, let's say, but no more than 5 miles. All right. Let's zoom in on Casper and let's see. I want to see the area on this map of where I could potentially live. Okay, and let's not say 5 miles. Let's cut that down to 2 miles. Okay, so I could live anywhere within 2 miles of Casper. All right. What would be? Hopefully, you're kind of thinking to yourself, well, how could we find that area that's 2 miles? So basically, this dot represents Casper. We want to find the area with a circle around that dot with a radius of 2 miles. All right. The tool we're going to use, there's a tool in GIS that will allow us to do this really fast, and that's called the buffer tool. Okay, so let's go ahead and open up the buffer tool. Again, the buffer tool is in Toolbox, but what I like to do is open up the search window. So here's the button. Let's click the search window, and let's type the word buffer in, B-U-F-F-E-R. Type buffer and hit enter. Several tools that have the word buffer in it. The first one right here in the list, buffer analysis tool, that's the one we're going to want to use. So let's click on that. Okay, so here's our interface for the buffer tool. Input feature. This is saying, okay, which piece of data in your map do you want to buffer? What input do you want? Let's hit the drop down arrow, and we want to put a buffer around the cities. So actually this is going to put a buffer around all of the cities in our data set, not just Casper, but all of them. Okay. So our input features the cities shapefile. Output feature class. This is very important, and a lot of times students rush through this and they forget to tell, or they forget to fill this part in. Now what the output feature class is asking is that the GIS is saying, okay, we're going to have to create a brand new shapefile with this buffer. We need you to tell the GIS where you want this new shapefile to be saved at. Hopefully when you think about it, an appropriate place to save this new shapefile would be in our week 1 data folder. Okay, so let's hit the browse button. Drop down arrow. Let's go to our folder connections. And here's my connection to my week 1 folder. I'm going to double click data and we're going to name it. Now let's call this cities _ buffer. I like to use underscores instead of spaces because a lot of times the tools or the software, they don't like it when there's spaces in file names. So if you want a space in your file name, put an underscore in there. Okay. Now this buffer is going to be 2 miles, so I'm going to put 2 mi in the name as well to let myself know that, hey, this is a buffer of the city shapefile with a radius of 2 miles. Okay. Click Save. Again, we've told the GIS software where to save this new shapefile. All right. Linear unit 2. What units do we want? Remember, we want miles. Okay. And let's go ahead and just click OK and let the tool run here. This may take a minute for the tool to run. I'm noticing in my picture down here when I'm recording, my eyes are always looking down. That's because the camera is above here, but my eyes are looking at my screen. So hopefully that's not too much of a distraction with my eyes always kind of looking down, but it's because I'm looking at my screen here. So has my tool worked here? Okay, took a little bit, but yep, there we go. And now you can see there's the buffer around Casper with a radius of 2 miles. So let's go ahead and zoom in on that. Now it'd be nice to see the aerial photo behind that 2-mile buffer. And again, what kind of shapefile did the GIS create for the buffer? Point line or polygon? You can tell it's a polygon because this is the symbol underneath, the polygon symbol. We can go ahead and click on that symbol, make it hollow, make it an outline of 2. I'm going to pick a kind of a greenish color. You can go ahead and pick whatever color you want. Oh, that doesn't really show up very well. We pick another color here, maybe a purple with an outline of 3. Okay, there we go. So there is my radius from the center of Casper for 2 miles. So that would be, I can quickly look on this map and tell my realtor, hey, this is where the area I want to live in. Okay, this is where I'd be willing to buy a house and live in, to be 2 miles away from the center of Casper. Okay, you can see the center is pretty close to the college here. So that's using the third component, Arc Toolbox. Okay, we used the buffer tool to create a buffer around the center of Casper with 2 miles, and now we can give this map to our realtor and say, hey, any house that's inside this buffer, I'd certainly be willing to look at to live. Okay. So just to recap again what we did, we've used the 3 components of ArcGIS: ArcMap, ArcCatalog, ArcToolbox. We looked at ArcMap first. Remember the toolbars in ArcMap, table of contents, viewing area. We learned how to add shapefiles into our GIS. Remember, there's 3 types of shapefiles: points, lines, and polygons. Okay. We learned in looking at catalog that a shapefile looks like it's just one file, but when we look at Windows Explorer, a shapefile is actually made up of multiple files. Okay. Good thing to remember if you're wanting to send data to someone. We learned how to manipulate the symbols. Okay, we can change symbols on our map so that we can see our data better. We learned that shapefiles have attributes in an attribute table, and we can write little queries. For example, when we picked out the 7 states that had a Asian population of 10,000 or less. Okay. And then finally we learned how to use just a simple tool to do some simple analysis. And the problem I gave you was I wanted to see the area around Casper, the center of Casper, within 2 miles for where I could live. And we used the buffer tool. We used the search window, typed the word buffer in, used the buffer tool to find that 2-mile radius of where we could potentially look for houses. So just some simple analysis there. Okay. Go back through this video, watch it again, watch it as many times as you want, and this should get you a good start on the first lab that I want you to complete. So this will be the end of this video. If you have any questions, again, email, call, or come into my office, and I'll certainly help you out. So we will talk soon, and thanks, and we'll talk again soon.